one knock on the head already. There we go. And we're in. So immediately forward of the turret basket, this is where the 7th man would be if you wanted to have a 7th man in the tank. It is the radio operator's position. He would have a backrest here, cushion. Obviously, with the radio being in the turret on the Grant, there is no need for the man or the seat, although I guess you could put one if you wanted, especially if for some reason you did wish to retain the 30 caliber in the bow. You can see the interior fittings for it here. Adjustable in elevation, no way of aiming. So near as I can tell, this little periscope up here, it does rotate, but since the gun doesn't traverse, you might as well just have it facing forward. So the radio operator will be adjustable for elevating the gun. The driver would be responsible for aiming the gun in azimuth. Completely inefficient, waste of space, waste of money, waste of everything. Of interest, there is a tank to my left here, and as near as I can tell, it is a water tank for drinking water, very useful in the desert. I don't know off the top of my head if this was a standard feature or just something that the British and Australians added a little bit later. I can see why it might perhaps have been taking up space for a radio. It's a fairly big tank, but a very nice, thoughtful feature. To his right, the driver. To his further right, so all three are in sort of a triangular formation, is the 75 gunner. So next thing I'll do is hop into the driver's seat, and you can see the relatively unfortunate position that the driver has to suffer with. So as you hop into the driver's seat, you can see he sits astride the transmission, one leg on each side. And I don't know, maybe motorcycle riders are good with this. This is something completely unusual for me, and I don't know how long I can handle it. There is a pedal on each side. The clutch on the left-hand side, the accelerator is on the right. Brakes are controlled by the steering tillers, so you pull both back and that'll stop. There is a parking brake down low on the left-hand side, but that is purely a lock. It's pretty much a physical lock in the transmission, as near as I can tell from the manual. So there's a reason the manual says do not use the parking brake as a service brake. Now on most of the M3 tillers, on the very top would be the triggers, one on each tiller, for each of the two machine guns. You can imagine why they were being removed together with the rest of the machine guns, but that was how you fired them. The dash is pretty much a standard dash, very simply laid out. So you got the booster and the starter switch. This is for your headlights, wipers. I kid you not, it says wipers, and I'm not entirely sure what it is they're supposed to be wiping. Maybe I'm doing it a disservice. Fuel cutoff. So when you're done with the engine, hit the fuel cutoff, and engine dies. Magneto control, so left, right, or both, or off. A compass. Yes, a magnetic compass. And you kind of wonder, how can they have one in a tank? Well, yeah, the same way you have one in ships. Curiously, there is on any metal object a point of neutrality. I can't remember the exact name of it. But if you place your magnetic compass on this point, it's not going to be affected by the metal of the vehicle. So if I recall correctly, on the Scorpion, it's actually the British CVRT. It's actually located pretty conveniently atop the turret between the commander and the gunner. As we keep on going, it should be noted that in early World War II, there was an attempt made in an inertial navigation system that the tank itself would remember by use of gyroscopes where it was on the map. And if you think about it, remember in North Africa in the desert, there's no navigation features. I mean, the one dune looks pretty much like another. And of course, when you have before GPS, you're stuck with celestial navigation. You're basically using a sextant with the stars or the sun. Or if you have the inertial navigation system, then fantastic. Of course, in practice, the INS didn't enter service. I have an article up in the Chieftains hatch about it, but we move on. There is a clock if you want to know what time it is. And I guess it's a wind-up clock. Cool. Engine hours, oil temperature, oil pressure, voltmeter, ammeter, speedometer goes up optimistically enough to 50 miles an hour. And the tachometer, which goes in reverse. So idle is on the right-hand side and all the way to the anti-clockwise position is a 3,000 RPM. Should be limited, I believe, 2,400. Gear lever is on his right hand side. It's a fairly standard pattern. So you would have to release a latch to put it into first or reverse on the left hand side. The first gear is really just for special circumstances. You're mired, you're towing something really bad, you're going up an incredibly high hill. Ordinarily, your gear pattern is going to be 2 to the 4. So 2, 3, 4, 5. Very easy. So as you're steering, it is a controlled differential. And what this means is that on the good news, there's always power going to both tracks as you're going around the corner. The bad news is that there is a minimum radius. In this case, it's 31 feet. Want to get going? If the engine's cold, you got a fuel primer here. Obviously, of course, as mentioned before, you want to hand crank the engine a couple of revolutions just to make sure that the oil is nicely spread out. Go ahead, prime it, hit boost, hit start. Of course, your mags are set for both, otherwise it's not going to work. Idle it at about 800. Give it a rev test, and just like if you're playing around in a Cessna, you check your mags. So both right, and you see that there's a drop of about 75 revs. Go back to both. Go to L, so you drop at 75 revs, and that has just tested your 2 banks of magnetos. After a warm-up period of about 2 or 3